Hello and welcome to Cardboard Conversations. With us today we have fantasy artist Drew Tucker. So hello Drew Tucker and welcome to Cardboard Conversations.
Oh,
Would you like
hello.
to, thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
I'm Drew Tucker. I'm a fantasy artist, right? Yeah, you totally hit it all on the head there. Yeah. But hello. I'm Drew. Yeah, I've been a fantasy artist for over 30 years, like 33 or 35 or something like that. Yeah, it is. A lot of other things in the middle as well, but yeah, I'm Drew Tucker.
So today we're going to talk about the first piece revealed for the next sorcery set, and that piece is by you, Drew. Could you take us through some of the concepts or narratives behind this piece?
Oh yeah, I can. I mean, you already caught it that it's parody spell. It's based off of Dur, but so when I got that, and this is the part where I was like, there's some questions about the power dynamics and what the card does and stuff like that I have no idea, because I got that as a commission. It was a commission piece, and yeah. So it was commissioned for Simon, and of course he knows what the next sets and things are going to be, right? So he wanted to have it done, but I don't he wanted. I honestly don't know what his grand scheme was, but he really wanted the piece, and so he brought up to her, and he brought up Horatio, and and said he wanted something based out of that, which is an insane thing to do too, especially because I mean that's a great piece, and oh my god, and there's so much going on with it, and I work the way I work, right? So in funny ways, it's a huge challenge. It was a huge challenge. And then, because you don't want to do Dur's piece, right? You don't want to do that. You can't I mean, I guess you could, and I sort of did, but in my own interpretation of it. But as far as its conception, Simon had just asked that, he gave me that as the reference, and so I started from there, and originally, so I did it as a vertical, picture, and once I got all the sketches and all the sketch work done for it, and if you want, I can send those to you. So
that would be cool.
Yeah, that would be easy.
I got that part on. I love the composition. It altered things enough. And the guys on the rocks, they had a slightly more focus than Simon was like, oh no, I want it to be a horizontal. And so I had to change kind of some of the focus and things, but the thoughts and ideas were still there. Because and you mentioned it in the email, or messaging, that Durs is really focused on the two on the rock, and the prelude to God and heaven and everything going on behind is this massive secondary thing where and I didn't think about it until that message was, you were like, oh, you have more of a focus on the angels and demons, and I'm not sure why. Honestly, because if I think about as a card, even though it wasn't conceived as a card, the player is the forefront, really. But it might have been why I did take that focus, because there's some thoughts in there. I'm not sure how to build the bubble out later, but I didn't answer your question at all.
But so many other interesting things. Also, because one of the things that I really noticed early on was the fact that we had this, like, as you said, shift in perspective. So instead of like the people being in the foreground and looking up at the heavens, you're one with the angels or flying creatures or
Yeah,
whatever
I
they
did want
are.
everything,
Yeah,
wrapping together. Part of that, I'm sure, is when Simon went like, "Oh, this is great, but I want a horizontal."
yeah,
That I had to deal with all this other space, right? So with those sketches, it's my original sketches are kind of concentrated. They do have a little overlapping, but I had to fill out. But I think there's like some philosophical nonsense going on why like the angels and demons I wanted to kind of like interwoven as the same.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like my own personal like thoughts going on in there, really, is what's happening. Yeah, we could talk about like religion and all sorts of BS. It would go like nutty and strange. But I think when I was painting that's what was going on. Like the conversation I was having, like what's the difference between angels and demons, and then like, of course, like how we like illustrators or like humans through history, because this is like bound in like Christianity in a weird way. Once you like, because of Paradise Lost, it's freaking bound there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't escape that when it's your reference point. But yeah, I have my own thoughts entirely on it, and I think that's why it's woven in and out. Dual nature of man and blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought that was so interesting. Because at the beginning, I was just like, I saw these like female bodies and figures, and I saw the wings. But I mean, like a little later on, I went back to it and I looked over it again, and I was like, oh, but some of them actually feel like more scary looking, and some of them have horns. And there was like this duality to all of these creatures that I really liked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so like, I did like, I was brought up in a heavy religious family, but like when I got that, I did like this weird deep dive, on like angels and demons and how they're described within the Bible, because like as illustrations or church work, they're always just these beautiful things, and general fantasy. Angels are just these beautiful, lovely creatures. But like in descriptions of them, they're horrifying, right? Like mind-boggling shit going on. Yeah, and so like, even though like I'm still kind of bound to like, oh yeah, you got to put this like weird human description on it. Angels apparently were terrifying, right? Like it's like in the Bible when they show up, they're always telling people like, "Oh, hey, it's okay, I'm an angel," because you've got like so many eyes and you're a freak. So I think right there, like maybe pause and have some weird thoughts on that, and even though they everything's really described pretty much like like normal, but I wanted this weird ambiguity in between the two things. So there's of course there's like like bodies that you can kind of like pick out. There's like within the negative space of those bodies are bodies, and it like flops back and forth, and then like as it spirals up, there's an eyeball right in the top, and that was like the whole spirally composition. Yeah, you got it off. It starts in the original piece, right?
Yeah.
But I was also thinking of like the descriptions of whatever angels are supposed to look like, and I'm sure like demons could be so far off base from like that, like a horrifying description. So I kind of think angels and demons are really funny. or at least how we portray them.
Exactly. I mean, they're both like, sort of connected to this like supernatural realm. And they're
right?
just perceived as like the good and bad, light and dark. But in reality, I mean, they're both like supernatural, liminal creatures that exist like somewhere between us and divinity or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's, like it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah,
what I'm
for sure.
go with.
So for this one, and I'm kind of interested in hearing that it was like originally a piece from a commission by Simon. Did he like give you some very specific description? It sounds like he at least mentioned some references, but did he pretty much allow you to run with it,
or? Yeah, he referenced her. What is it, Paradiso?
Yeah,
that was it. That was the go point. Was I think it's called the assumption. I can't say it, but the assumption.
Ascension,
that's it.
Yeah.
Assumption, like kind of figuring something out. Like I think you said this. Yeah, the ascension. Yeah. That was in the entire bit. He was like, I want a piece kind of like this. And I'd like you to do it. I was like, okay. Because that's a huge. I mean, that's a wonderful piece, and that's like a huge thing to try to like follow. It's a huge thing to try to follow.
Yeah, it's also, the original piece is black and white, and it's a very, grand composition. And you chose to do some purple colors and some green colors in this. And it's, in its style, it's very different from what we saw in Ethereum Legends, some of the cards you had there. For instance, the Dam, and also the Dust promo of King Arthur. Those cards are very, embossed. There's a lot of gold colors, a lot of circular compositions.
Yeah. I mean, and all of these are done in like different time points.
Yeah.
So like it's funny to see paintings, or it's funny for me to see my paintings when they come out, because they don't necessarily come out. Like a lot of that King Arthur stuff happened after this painting. Ooh, right? Like and after and during, so in the King Arthur promo, it was also a commission.
Yeah.
Right. And that one, I can't remember what painting I did. I had done that, like kind of like spawn that. But like that, at least that approach went into Britomart, right? Like with the gilding and stuff like that. But like often I'm probably a difficult illustrator to work with if I'm thinking about it. I like to look at all the pieces for what that piece is about, right? Like, so I don't always think the same answer is appropriate for everything, right? And I'm sure if I did that, if I did like with this painting, after I did like Britomart, I would have like thrown in, like I would have probably like built it on gold and silvers instead, because that's a lot of fun, but then it would have this extra crazy light to it. The pinks and the purples and the oranges and greens, I don't know what I was thinking, or like why it went that way. As a whole, when I was looking, I have a copy. I mean, like I want to say it's like fleshy, but it's not really like. It's like the deep parts of flesh or something. It's really strange. But like for the most, it's it does work off of like complements of like purples and yellows, purples and golds, and it's kind of punching that. But I'm almost certain if I had gotten that commission from Simon after Dan Britomart, or Vertimat, I would have probably put that thing on silver and like done different things within it. I'm sure the purple and everything and the weird colors are still going to be there, but like, just an interesting thought, I guess, is when you change colors, right? Like color, like you were saying with the original piece, right? Like that black and white, you know.
Yeah.
That's all you really need. If you think about it, all you really need is a value structure, and color could be like spice when you're cooking, you know. And if you change your like local colors, like if your grass is green, you're like, you know, I'll make the grass purple. Then the purple grass means something, right? And so same thing with this painting. Once you change colors from what it normally is or what you normally assume, it becomes important, or it becomes it packs it with some sort of like, it packs it with motion or another like realm of like, you know, storytelling, because colors, just like shapes and compositions and everything, have symbolic properties to it. So there's all that weird, and I think that's why, like, if I think about a lot of my paintings lately, I kind of like, I push a lot of the colors kind of off of what they usually are. But that just might be like the, you know, coming to grasp with, no, I guess I'm not really a realistic painter. Where I always thought I was, but like now, you know, because I'm doing some weird things like that.
Yeah, because also we sort of like spoke about like we hadn't seen a lot of pieces, at least not for Sorcery Contested Realm, with this color scheme, but somehow it made like even more of an impact because there's something about the lighting that makes it feel like almost like a sunset sort of color, you know, a pink purplish sky. There's something about that also has like these associations to clouds, heavenly bodies, and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool considering the theme of it.
Yeah, but the green also gives it a sort of, you know, sickly hue.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, you know, that might be part of the, like, it's going up into the heavens or whatever. Why? I really wish I could like go like, yeah, that's exactly why this. But it ended up that's what the painting kind of wanted. But yeah, it does. It has this reflection of, you know, like sunsets or sunrises and things.
Yeah.
I like that thought. Yeah.
Nice.
You're like, oh yeah.
Cool. So is there like a detail in this piece that you really love, but people might not like see? Because initially, I think a lot of people didn't notice that there are two figures because they're, you know, proportionally to the rest of it, relatively small in the composition. But is there like something you really like in the piece or really love?
You know, like I really do like those little those two figures, but I really like there's like a bird-headed person on the upper right. But I really like the eyeball, to tell you honestly, in the very top of everything going into it. Gosh.
And you're calling it an eyeball.
Like I like the left-hand corner too, with the strange the strange angel-like figures, kind of like warping in and out. There's all sorts of moments in this that I find entertaining. Darn it. Yeah, I wouldn't say the eyeball, but I'm sure everybody sees the eyeball. I would have thought everybody would get the little people up on the hill. You know, because I mean that's probably my only really good solid you know, pull from the original. But for myself, I do like, because even when I was painting it, it became kind of like there's a couple of obvious like angel-y demon things going on. You know, up the right hand side and on the very top. But like one of the things I really find entertaining is the sort of weird Rorschach thing going on in the lower left hand corner. Because there's some very obvious angels. There's some like, angels and demons in the shadow part, and it's almost like a Rorschach test. And I think that's really fun because like hopefully when people see it, their brains can start picking out things and then faces and heads, because there's all sorts of nonsense in that, and some of it is just the painting being nonsense and giving you what it wants to give you, or you interpreting it the way, because really, and then some are obvious plants, but I really think I like that left-hand corner because it's like this weird Rorschach thing that you can like look at it and go like, how's it going? What do I see? And for this picture, I find that really, really entertaining because then like either the good stuff comes out, bad stuff comes out, whatever.
That's super interesting. Also, I mean, that's sort of reflective of the viewer rather than the actual painting, because it's a reflection of what they're seeing in that piece, which is also like the Warshack part of it. I really enjoyed that answer. I think that's really interesting.
Definitely. I need to go look at that again.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, actually. Like I've got that bad print with me, and like there's stuff in the muddling of the paint and everything. It's really kind of like, but I really enjoyed painting that part. And it was probably like the hardest bits too, because that's like where it starts expanding out of, my original like vertical that I did it in. And then also, it weirdly allows this weird foreground background thing going on. But even painting it, I was, I'd see figures or I'd see faces in it that I would try to pull out that would make other ones. And it was, I think I stopped this painting like when I finally finished, because like Simon was like, just take your time. Because I was finding it very difficult to stop. It's just there was like things and things to do, and I could change this and I'd alter this, or like if I scratch this all out, I could like maybe I could go back to this other moment when I was making it, and I could have like, if I still had that painting with me, I would still be working on that painting because it was really like brain consuming. Very like in a fun way, in a nice way, right? But there was so much weirdness going on in it. I think one of the trickier ones, or it has been, because some of it is that like that weird freedom of like, oh no, I want something like this painting, something like yours, and then like but you be you, and that's a trap right there, which is a delightful trap. But like somewhere at least you have the boundary of Durer to like stop you. But like like just painting it just like this last answer goes on and on and on and on. It could have kept on going.
But that's also interesting because the painting is about them exploring the infinity of the Almighty, so that the painting was also like an iteration of like that process that keeps evolving. That's sort of interesting and parallel.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's a nice thought. Yeah. It's kind of
So what has actually been the most challenging part about this piece?
Oh shoot. Probably the most challenging part was like I take a lot of I've been trying to film things lately, but I take a lot of photo reference, or not photo reference. I do use a lot of photo reference, but I also take a lot of process shots is what I was trying to think of. And so you see all these moments where you're like, oh, right there, I should have stopped and I could have gone back. But so I think that's in general, that's like one of the most challenging things. So some of the times it's because I'm working on multiple pieces at once. So I do this so I can step away and then come back to where I'm at. But like, yeah, because this is a stupid infinity painting that it just keeps on going. And even doing that process thing with it was a weird trap. The simple answer is probably when I had to expand it to a horizontal to figure out what to do to keep it to have the correct feeling and everything. So yeah, I guess like too long or one short answer to one long rambling one about like process shots. Yeah, I think yeah. They like all the paintings have like their own like challenge, I think, and they like for me they're all like little lessons in how to do like the next painting, you know. So I don't know if it's like a tricky thing or you know it's overly challenging that way. So I don't look at them as problematic. That's not like it. It's not really answering it. Yeah, it was just so involved. I think that was because yeah, I'm not necessarily a noodler, and I'm trying to learn how to be a noodler. And maybe this painting is like the step into like, oh no, like if you started doing this more, noodle the mess out of everything. That would be it. But yeah, like there's so freaking much information. And that was challenging because usually, you know, I mean, I put a lot of stuff in my paintings, but like, do I? I'm not sure. But yeah, the sheer amount of noodling and then what you had to like go, you know, being that the reference is dirt once again, like that's a huge foot to like try to. I mean, you can't escape that it's that, right? But it's a huge thing to try to follow behind, but not be its shadow or its reflection, but like make it its own piece. I think that might be like the biggest, the most challenging part of it. Kind of like the like that courtesan painting, right? Like that was to go behind like a Franzetta piece. That's like really like Franzetta, you know, is a huge figure there, and they're huge figures. So like, how do you follow and like respect that, especially with this piece? How do you respect what came before you without like, you know, dead yoinking it, you know, or making like, you know, just like a vapid reproduction of it. That's tricky sometimes, I think.
So do you know that it will be on a card? Do you have any confirmation? No.
I thought maybe it'd be a playmat because of the horizontaliness of it, right?
That would be amazing.
I didn't know it was going to make cards. I didn't know it was going to be revealed when they showed it in like Vegas, I guess. I had no idea, which is really cool. I'm like that's an honor to have like that. That's like the first image that's stepping this one up, right? Like that's pretty neat and very interesting to me. I no idea any of that was going to happen.
So it's a surprise for you too.
Yeah. Most definitely. It was a very pleasant surprise.
For sure. So if you had like to imagine that this would be a card, or that you have to give like a name to this piece, is there like a working name in your head where you think this sort of encapsulates it? Would it be something like Durr's name, like Paradiso, or do you have a different name in mind for it?
If I was awesome, sure. Put on my computer. It's called Simon's Angels and Demons. That's the
working title for sure.
It's on my file that holds everything. It was just like, this is what it is. Um, but I love the Imperium. That's like really stupid cool sounding. But no, I call it Simon's Angels and Demons because I'm lame. I'm gonna go with theirs.
Simon's Angels and Demons.
Yeah,
But I also think that maybe you might want to reference some of these, inspirational sources because it's sort of taken out of Dante's Inferno, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the original piece is because Doerr, he illustrated a lot of books during his lifetime, and one of them was, of course, Dante's Divine Comedy. So he illustrates the book all the way through like the different circles of hell, but he also illustrates all the way to the ascension towards God. And that's like the final piece here is actually in the final song or chapter because it's like a Homeric epic that it sort of emulates this piece of work. So it's in the final stages of it where they are, and I mean the two figures, at least in his original piece, is supposed to be Dante himself and the Roman author Virgil, who have come out of the hell and looking upon God now. So that's like the original piece, which is very interesting because the original is I mean, the book is really worth reading, but just looking through all of these illustrations in black and white, that's also a great experience.
The illustrations are amazing.
Absolutely.
I had read it like moons and moons ago, but like, I've often looked at the illustrations because it's they were incredible. They're incredible. I forgot that was supposed to be Dante and Virgil. Like, if I look at it, it looks like a guy and maybe like a little kid. I have to I'm sorry if I unplug. And it's like some trench coat guy too, like over a road, right? Like, which is when I was younger, younger. That works. I do a lot of paintings of like a guy in a field that's wearing a trench coat that is essentially one of those little dudes, which I think that's funny too because it seems like a weird relapse in there of like visual imagery that I do. But I wish it was during Virgil. That'd be nice. But if I was smart, I'd make it Simon.
That would have been epic.
Yeah, that would have been like really cool. Let's say I did.
Yeah, that's it. So I mean, you get to decide, right?
That's a great narrative.
Oh no, I like that. Oh shoot, I should have. That would have been really cool.
So, Drew, you've been working, as you started with saying, for like many, many years, illustrating Magic the Gathering from the beginning as like one of the original 17 Magic the Gathering eras, and all the way like working through even in some of the more recent sets. I've seen some of your work. You have like, was it Cavern of Souls or something like that? You had a really nice painting.
Yeah, there's Cavern of Souls. There's been and there's more stuff coming too. So like, I get lost because there's a lot of paintings. There's a lot of paintings.
Yeah, there's a lot of Magic sets. So I would imagine
there's a lot of Magic sets, right? And I did like Cavern of Souls, and then like Forbidden Orchard, which were newer ones, and the Arcane Signet.
Yeah.
And there was other ones after that, and there's been a whole bunch.
Absolutely.
It gets a little confusing. But even in like Cavern of Souls, all the holes make other faces. If you start looking at that picture, and if you got to see the whole painting, the hole that like brings you into the cavern is a silhouette. That brings you into faces and the faces and the faces.
That's cool. I only saw the card.
Yeah, I like doing like this weird like detail, no detail thing going on.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you've been working with Magic for so long, and along comes sorcery. Is there anything that's different about the way that you sort of approach the pieces that you're doing? Is there a difference between doing a Magic piece and a sorcery piece?
Oh, right. Like, there are. Um, but I would say, like, I try to approach any piece. Like, if it's magic, if it's sorcery, if it's stuff that I'm working on that's personal, or if it's a commission for somebody, I try to approach every one of them, as just, this is what you're asking for. This is what it is. So in ways, it's like trying to honor the thought of the image.
Yeah.
And because I'm painting, it's automatically gonna, like, stink like I did it, right? It's gonna look like I made it. So that's pretty bound, unless I like totally switch with mediums or something. Sometimes that happens. But for these, sorcery in a way is a lot like early magic, where you have this like strange unbound freedom to it. You get a little bit more direction than you did, because there's things that has to happen, and as we're working, it's starting to build itself up, right? It started to, like, there are things in there that like might be referenced back later on. And just like the origins of magic didn't exist. So like when you got a card, you was just like, oh, wall of water or neckrite, right? Like, and you do whatever, because it doesn't, like, you can do whatever you want. And sports is very much like that too, in ways. It's not the same, because you're never really doing just what you want. And now, like, the assignments are getting a little bit more. That's not true. I'm sorry. It's still like, I'm trying to recall an older one, so I don't like spoil something. So, but some of them have. Oh, King Arthur's an easy one to like do this and stuff. That's like loaded with history, right? And literature history, and like cultural variations, from the French and the early Brits and everybody that like contributed. But there's so much freaking like meat right there already, and so you're bound to some of it, even though like Dame Bernard or Bernard, it was like. She's, she was like a knight that like other knights feared and looked up to. Like, so you have this boundary there, but then you're still like, you're very much encouraged to, and this would make sense for any illustration or any illustrator, right? That you're being hired to do what you do, but you're very much encouraged to do and paint the way you paint, which is, I guess, fortunate for me, because, like I was saying, I'm probably a difficult illustrator. Within the realms of like, this is what you have to do. It's very similar to early magic in that way, that like it's almost like an open world, right? It is bound here and there by specific things. And slowly, there's some of those things are wrapping back around, it seems like to me. Where like magic, to work with them now, I think now even I find them a little bit better than like a little while back, where it was so heavy loaded with direction. They're a little bit more verbose or wordy with their descriptions, but the ones that I've been getting recently, it's not like they're new cards, right? Like, so, like Cavern of Souls has been done like how many times? So but it's still bound to like what's been done before. So I think maybe because I want to pretend, because it's me, like, like they were like, oh, we'll give them a little room, or at least that's what I want to say. I'm sure that's not, it's not like just me, but like, well, I think we're special.
But it was interesting because we did a talk and an interview with Ed Beer Jr. and he also said that there had definitely been a point where Magic was more, really decisive about this is the palette you can use. These are the, you have to hit this, this, and this. There had been like, and it seems like he also said that some friends who were still working for Magic, they said that it had actually gotten better again a couple of years ago because there was a period where everything was very defined.
Yeah. It was, but if you think technologically, what was happening too, like at that period, Hasbro bought it, right? Like, computer art became like a mainstay almost, and so like, even with the computer art and that stuff's like awesome, and those guys are great. But they can go down and they can like noodle all this like information that's not necessary, and kind of takes away, but it's also indicative of, of that art direction in a strange way. Well, like I think some of that is because of Hasbro getting it and starting to develop this very solid IP.
Yeah.
So want to do things in the future. It's also, I think, writers got a greater hand in the description than the art directors, right? Because like usually the art director is an artist, or has that background, so they kind of understand what's going on, and a writer will just like write all this stuff like that, like and like and I want it all in there, and as an image, putting everything in there kind of distracts away from what's important sometimes. Unless it's, everything is important.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So you also mentioned that you had the great honor of actually doing the Contested phase after the Frazetta art piece. How do you feel like, as an artist, that you are, you're part of actually shaping the visual identity of Sorcery Contested Realm? Is that something that you're, focused on while you do your paintings, or you're just painting and thinking, yeah, this is my style and I want this sort of visual outlook?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with the second, because I don't like that's strange in my head to think like what I'm making is like helping define like visual styles that are going on. That's like that, and I guess it does. But like if I was to think about it that way, I don't think it'd be fair to the pictures or to sorcery, because that's putting yourself like in like some weird. That's like thinking way too much of yourself to me, because like I'm just looking at pictures, and trying to like make the coolest thing I can make, and let the next one be even cooler than that one. So like I'm more concerned with that. Like that's a hard thing to like consider in my head, that like something I'm doing is shaping. And maybe it is, and that's fucked up. That's really cool. Sorry about my language. That's a hard thought for me to put in my head. The really, really cool. I just look at it as like pictures for like, this is, I'm trying to do the best thing for this concept or for this idea. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just a big thought in my head, and like I didn't really have that thought. So thanks.
No pressure and stuff like that.
Now you've introduced it. Now it's staying there.
Yeah, no, it'll go away. Like it's got a big hole in the back, and things just.
I've simply created a sort of a painter's block.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So, Drew, you already said like that this piece was actually done before some of the other pieces that we saw in Arthurian Legends. So where were you, and how do you feel like that this piece with the angels, demons, creatures floating around, how do you feel like that reflects you as an artist? Is that where you were at that time, or is there something that you would have done differently now? Because I mean, you're always sort of like painting from the space you're in, right?
Yeah. It's very much like I was going to pull up like where the file was, and I could see the date, and I could like compare where it is. But yeah, I think it's a reflection of where I was at that moment in time, almost like every image, because I think each painting that you do is for the next painting after it. But that's, as far as illustrations go, nobody can tell because it's the timeline is skewered. But for me, it's very much, this is where I was right at this moment with this piece. And the next one will borrow moments from that, or things that I think painting is an active conversation, and if you're open to it, it will teach you things, and of course by repetition, of course, right? Like you're gonna like it better and do so. But if you're open to it, like it will tell you things to hold on to for the next image or the next picture or the next thought that's similar. Kind of like life, right? Like But yeah, very much. It's exactly where I'm at that moment in time.
Were you painting anything else alongside it where you can sort of see like there's like some sort of connection between the pieces, or that they're influencing each other?
I know I was painting like I'm going to try to pull it like on the side. I'm going to try to pull up the file so I can see. I've usually got like 2 or 3 paintings going at the same time, which becomes like really strange.
Yeah, it was interesting.
That's really nice too. Like that means I'm working, and that's good. And that's what I want in my life, right? Like I want to be like a thoroughly working artist and a working illustrator.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I was like recently, just like the past weekend, I was at a sorcery tournament in Belgium. And I was speaking to some of the other artists, and I was also speaking to an ultraist called Pietro Di Seo. And he was like saying that he usually works on like several pieces, so he can come to the piece with fresh eyes, but also like there must be some like cross contamination going on, like because you're doing something cool over here, and then you're thinking, oh, I could do something over here that's similar. Or
there's definitely got to be a cross contamination going on. I think you're right. But you almost have to like for depending on like how you're working. Like some of these paintings take a while, especially like oil. You can take your time and noodle the mess out of that. I mean, you can do it with acrylic and watercolor too, just the process itself. But that's why like I take a lot of process photos. Is so like once I got to step away and like working, because you got to like let paint dry, right? Even if it's watercolor, you got to let paint dry. So you can come back and like. And if you've got a load of work to do, you need to be able to step back and try to sort of be in the same place. But I'm sure they contaminate each other. No, so like Agravan was painted before this painting. I know things kind of pollute each other when you're doing it, because like if you're being informed each time, but like I was saying, that is why I do process photos, so I can like try to get back exactly at the same spot. So if I was painting, sometimes I'll paint stuff that has like a batch of, the palette is similar or the emotion is similar, and so I'll try to separate into that so it doesn't get confused too much.
But I think it's interesting because I mean, both there's like it sounds bad when we say like pollute or cross contaminate, but I imagine there's also like some positive effects of like, working on this just gave my mind some space to come back to the piece.
No, I think that's exactly what happens. It's like when you try to think of an idea, you can't usually. And it doesn't come to you immediately while you're talking or while you're doing it. If you go for a walk or something, our brains will, like, when we're not thinking about stuff, our brains still think about it and solving problems. So I think that's a natural thing for everything. So why it's good to, like, switch off. Sometimes when I make paintings, and especially like if I have to procrastinate, or if I'm procrastinating, I guess I don't have to, right? Like, stuff off. But like when I can't think about stuff, I'll go and I'll make furniture. So like my brain is totally occupied with something else, so it can think about the solution other ways. But I think everything does that. Everybody does that, and I think that's just one of the ways that we learn and we take in information and expel it. Yeah.
So true. This piece, we have talked about that, your artistic style is going to develop, that you have had some phases where you have been drawn to different techniques, different colors. But this piece here, is there something that you hope stands the test of time? So when you're looking at, looking back at it in 5 years or 10 years, is there something that you think that is going to stand the test of time?
Wow, right? Like, I don't. That's hard for me to like. That's hard for me to. That's like thinking that's almost on the same line of like thinking of like, oh, I'm making a stamp on like how these images are going to be. Like, I don't think about that. Like Dan, right? Like from Magic, I didn't think that would like stay around. I think that was a great painting because it's really good like watercolor, but I didn't think that would like stand like for such a long 30 freaking years, right? I didn't think it would hold on and like mean anything to anybody. So I don't really like think about that. And yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I hope it does. But like, if it does, am I gonna know? Who cares? Like not that. And I think like right now it's really important. I hope so. That would be really cool. That's probably a politer answer.
Cool.
No, I definitely hope so too.
Yeah,
I love the composition. I love that it has this, grandiose sort of composition and a lot of creatures. And I think that's sort of unique. I haven't seen that many sorcery cards actually, having that many figures and that much going on a card.
Yeah.
So
Well, usually it's limited to
simple figure or something.
like
Right?
I was thinking of the Cauldron one. But like it's limited to a very limited thing. But if you have angels and demons, right, you're already on a plurality there. So it can't be like 3 of each. It's got to be 4. Yeah, and I'm sure it was helpful not knowing that it was going to be a card. But I think specifically for this painting, it required so much in it. And it's a fairly large painting too. Like it's like I think 36 by 24 or something like that. It was like big. But I think just by its nature, it required all that information in it. And so, if there's another card in the future of mine or somebody else's that is like, you have to have a lot of angels and demons in it, or you have to have like more than 7. That information will come, but I think that's very specific just for this painting and image itself. So that's what it asked for.
Is there like a set, like in the future, is there something particular that you're dying to work on, like a sort of a theme or a mythology, or just something that you're really interested in right now that you would love to make a painting for sorcery for?
Oh gosh. I think Irish mythology is really interesting. But like all mythology, it's like crazy talk. it's all really interesting stuff. But I like a lot of I like a lot of folklore,
Yeah.
and I like a lot of like earth-based stuff. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, like I like that sorcery gets to explore within all these like Fomorians is like Irish giants, right? Like a lot of King Arthur has all this folklore, all this mythos and stories already built into it. I really enjoy that we get to like kind of like pick into there. I think doing stuff like Welsh stuff would be fun, kind of interesting, because I would like to know more about like Welsh mythology. Or Welsh folklore, because they've got some crazy mess. They've got some crazy stuff that's pretty interesting too. But yeah, I would hope that we get to explore more and like pull more of these like folklores that like that are very come from like the human existence, right? Like I hope we get to explore more of those. I really enjoy that, because that gives me like a deeper understanding, I guess, or understanding of like ourselves, if that makes So I would hope it goes that way. But I like to get to be a part of like one of the things I like about sorcery the most is, especially in the beginning, especially now, is I get to be a part of this new idea, and this new thought, and this creation that so many people are passionate about, and that's like really like that really gives me a lot of joy, and so to me it's like kind of, I like to help try to answer those problems, like visual problems, of course, like that's what I do. For like projects that have this sort of passion to it. So like I don't mind what comes at me, like because each thing kind of expands like how you get to think. Anyhow, yeah, I don't necessarily have a preference of it's got to be this kind of work, or it only has to stay within typical like Tolkien-esque fantasy, right? Like I like when things get to spread around, and I don't necessarily mind when something is like brought into it. I like that it's developing in its own language, its own thoughts based off of our folklores, and I hope it stays within this realm. And within that, there's so much to branch and grow.
I absolutely recognize that, because we've been talking a lot about like diving into like the Roman mythology, the Nordic mythology. There's so many interesting things, and in all these mythologies, I mean, there's all those like really well-known things like Pandora's box from Greek mythology. A lot of people already know about that, but I mean, there's also all these niche little fun and interesting things. And I think Eric has done a really great job of pulling out some of those things that are well known, but also some of the more background stuff that just adds to the world building.
Yeah, I think there's so much there that like you can build out of. And I love that it's staying in like, within our own mythologies. That's something I think's sometimes important. Not within like fantasy card games or anything like that. But I think it's important, like, like in a maybe like an archaeological sort of way. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but yeah, it builds upon like our own thoughts. And I think that's like really cool. I think it's amazing how he's running and picking out those niches, those little bits. Because why would you want to stay anyhow on like this is what everybody knows, and this is what we'll stay with? That's kind of boring. When there's all this like weird little stuff out there too.
Yeah, and
It's
I think that's some of my favorite things. That's when he like pulls something out, like the Fomorians or like the Koi Nixie. I mean, everybody was, at least I was thinking about nights and tournaments and like for the King Arthur set. And then somehow he pulled out a lot of like cool little things that just really broadened out the theme, but also made it
yeah.
a lot more interesting.
Yeah, no. I think that, yeah, like even when I mean, because I knew it was going to be King Arthur going on, but yeah, I was stuck in like just like English and French literature. But yeah, like then he started breaking into like Irish mythologies and things. Yes, very cool. Like just an amazing way to like think about it, as opposed to just that blank canvas of like Arthur and Lancelot and all the normal bits.
So, are you working on any pieces for the next set right now? Can you say anything? Like, do you have 4, 3, a lot?
Yes.
Yes.
I could be. I can say that. Yeah. In general, I think it's probably best for me not to ever say anything about what's going on at the moment. That's the safest thing, to like forget what's behind the door.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the door, right? Like, yeah. That's the door. So maybe I am. I could be.
We hope you are, because we would love to get to talk with you another time about some of your pieces.
Might also indicate that there might be some pieces behind there. So I think we're going to see more from Drew Tucker in the next set. Definitely.
I hope so. That would be wonderful. And super exciting for me. Yeah. Like sorcery is great to like work for. Yeah, the amount of freedom and the amount of passion that's in it is like exhilarating.
So Drew, one final question. We really also wanted to sort of figure out, how has the reception been from the community? How do you feel like the response has been from the sorcery community?
I think the response has been really, really good. I think they're very passionate about the art. I mean, like, I have to compare it to Magic, right? Because like that's my comparison point. And like Magic has stuff coming out every month or week. That I think they're supposed to slow that roll coming up. Is what I read like on the news or something. But you don't have that same burn for the artwork in Magic that you do for sorcery, I see. And part of it is because it's a new thing. Part of it is because it does like really let each artist be themselves. It's not this homogenized thing, right? And then the other part of it is that there's not product coming out every week, or every other week or every month. So, that slow roll, I think, allows that appreciation as well. Plus, sorcery really like trumpeting the art. So, yeah, I think the response for the art is really like nice and lovely. Yeah. So, yes.
Great.
Awesome. Again, Drew, thank you so much for joining us today. We won't eat up more of your time. It has been absolutely amazing to get to talk to you, and I really also enjoyed our conversations at Spiel Essen. So again, thank you so much for doing the interview. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no, anytime. I'm always happy to. I'm sorry that I'm a rambler, but you kind of already knew that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's been great having you on, Drew, and very interesting also.
Oh, no,
so guys, if you enjoyed the interview, please do like and consider subscribing. We also have a full playlist of lots of artist interviews, and you can hit that under Cardboard Conversations. So thank you for today, guys. Bye.